what went into that and what they are. But it was very important for us from the start, as Kevin said even more eloquently than I will, that there's a real need for grounded verisimilitude about these aliens. You really believe these aliens have their own culture, that they really did come here. They talk to each other in their language as immigrants would, and that was no small task. And then we had 7 races, so it was even a bigger task. So we got the best in the business to do that for us. So please welcome David Peterson.
So, how's it going? So I'm here to talk to you about the alien languages that we've done for Defiance. And I think that what I think was really impressed upon me at the very beginning when I heard about the entire project is that this is probably one of the more unique situations, at least for a television show or a movie, that I think I've ever seen linguistically. So first, it takes place on Earth, so it's not going to be an accident that people are speaking English. English is just around. It's on St. Louis, so it's still kind of like a medium of communication. But it's kind of a fascinating linguistic contact situation where you have a whole bunch of different alien races, each of them with their own unique culture, their own unique language, and they're all bringing them, and everything just gets to mix together and become a huge, like, gigantic linguistic mess, which to me just sounded like it was just, I am still a kid in a candy store. It's just absolutely wonderful to do. So I wanted to just show you a little bit of what I'm doing. Here, I'm going to go to the next one. One of the things, I think, one of the reasons, one of the questions that a lot of people ask is why create a full language for something like a TV show, something like a game or a movie. And really it's about authenticity, it's about verisimilitude, and what adds to that is the little details. So this is actually a picture I took on set when I first came here back in May. This might look a little differently if you go and look at it now. But one of the things that was neat, there's just this truck here, and it's just a part of a wall somewhere, but go ahead and click the next thing. You see right here, we're in Ontario, but we have a Missouri license plate on this guy. It was like, yes, that's exactly the kind of detail I expect when you come to basically an entire new environment, an entire new world. And so that's what I wanted to bring to bear with the languages. What we have right here is basically there are 7 different alien species. 4 of them have kind of a linguistic palette, and then these, the 2 top here, the Cascans and the Arabians, are the ones that have the largest languages. I think Cascan is up to about 2,000 words right now, and Arabian about, Arabian 2,000, Cascan 1,300. Each of these have their own writing system. I know that language is often a little bit opaque, so one of the easiest ways to get into it is to look at the writing systems. Oh, by the way, this just says the names of the languages in the 3 different languages. Up top, I think that says Castellano. Next is Iraqi, and then next is Indonesian. All right, in developing these scripts, you've probably seen these hexagonal things around. The indigenes are these aliens that have all of these genetic and prosthetic enhancements that you're going to get to see in the show that kind of allow them to function much better than your average sentient being. And so I figured, okay, this is my opportunity to create something not inauthentic, but a little bit constructed. So it's like I created this, it's not really an alphabet, it's more of a syllabary, where I thought that each character would have the same look. So, for example, up here we have the first one, that's how you would write syllable pa, next one is ba. This next one is the number 5, that's number 35, this is a plus sign. By the way, you can look at these and maybe somebody can spot what base they're using if you're a math person. But I wanted each character to be kind of like this hexagonal lift because in addition to just writing it so that you can just stack it, I figured, you could probably use this, for example, in places like, I don't know, in building material walls. This was just my idea that I came up with at the beginning, and I said, we might be able to do this. Then when I came on set, I saw that they actually had taken this to heart. So this is a building that's just out there. It's one of the indigene buildings, and you can see the hexagonal design was built right into the building. I think if you saw Gary's presentation, there's a part where they're coming into the town of Defiance, and you see kind of a barrier, and you see the hexagons that are right there in the barrier. was really, really cool. And one of the best details, I didn't get a picture of this, but maybe you'll be able to see it later. The indigenes that are actually on set, you'll see, I hear you're going to see Doc Hill a little later. If you look very closely at their eyes, lots of different aliens have, what do you call it, contact lenses, and their contact lenses have, the iris is a little hexagon. And I really wanted to take a picture of that, but I thought it would be kind of rude to go and try and say, can I take a close-up picture of your eyes? And perfectly still, don't look. But anyway, it's these kind of little details that really pop up and make things fun. But again, since they're kind of enhanced beings, I figured they could get away with a writing system that doesn't look like it's weathered over time. That they would kind of be able to just use something that looks really kind of alien. The next two are more authentic systems. If you look at our alphabet, for example, it's kind of weathered over the years, descended from Phoenician, gone through Hebrew, Greek, Latin, and so forth. It's kind of bent to our will. And here's just a little example. So we have, this is actually an Egyptian hieroglyph. It's a vulture that can stand for the sound ah or just a vulture. And that's how it would appear in tomb inscriptions. However, when the scribes were writing it on papyrus things, to present to the builders who are going to write stuff, they actually used this, which is kind of a cursive form. You have to excuse, this is just my handwriting, copies from the book. So you can see, yeah, it's pretty vulture-y. But at the same time, it's not like they went to the pain of actually writing this out by hand. This, after a little while, began to devolve into, this is what's called hieratic, an even more stylized form of this cursive script. This would still be what the scribes would use. And then as this descended to the common people, what you got is demotic, or what's called demotic. This is kind of before they switched over to Greek. And so if you look at this, and then look at this, you see how are these two things related. So it's kind of like this progression of evolution. And that's really what I bring to the table when I create languages. They don't just jump out of someone's forehead fully clad in armor. They kind of wear down over time. And these are civilizations that should have been in existence for thousands of years before they came to Earth. So with our two naturalistic writing systems, the Arabian and Tacitan, I applied the same principle. Again, this is my handwriting, I apologize. But you have these two long, or these three syllables here. This is for Tacitan. Long ha, hu, ki, back, in the olden days. And it used to be written out like this, kind of like, if you imagine, on clay-like tablets, you could stamp it pretty easily. You could write it in the sand pretty easily. As this moved to more of a stylus type system, what you got is kind of a stylized rendering of these. So it's like the same thing, but it's like it got a little simpler, it means that it was easier to write. And then, especially what I wanted to do with Tacitan is kind of standardize it to make it look like, I almost think of the Tacitan writing system as the Votan version of the Roman alphabet. It's pretty ubiquitous, it's very standard, so this is actually what it looks like today. So all of these elements have now been standardized, they now bear no relationship whatsoever to the original forms, and it's just kind of the way things are written. And so I applied kind of this level of evolution to each of the characters, and then Tacitan itself has, I tried to get all of this in here, but this is how many characters it has. It's an Abugida system, so it has a character plus each of the vowels, and so it's just, it's actually very complicated. I tried to make it easy to write in fonts. Messed art department how to get about that. So that's just kind of the writing systems. Everything went through a similar process. All the time, so I wanted to jump to the language itself. In addition to how you write the language, of course the language itself also goes through a system of evolution, of regular change. So I tried to go back, say, a few thousand years and imagine what would these languages have looked like at that point, how would they have evolved on their home planets before they arrived on Earth, and then are now undergoing a different kind of contact evolution. So you can imagine 1,000 or so years ago, we had this Tacitan word, which was probably pronounced Dothraki, which was the word for war, an old word. That now has changed, you now pronounce it Reggio, and it's just kind of a word that means sport now. It has no connection to war, but part of the fun thing, and this is where you can take the writing system and build it straight into, you can kind of see the history of it. this is actually how you spell this word. So it's pronounced Reggio, but you actually spell it like this. And you can think of this as kind of a way that's like, you know, in English, you have the word night, K-N-I-G-H-T. It's very, you know, difficult. Anyway. Next thing, oh, by the way, we do have a modern word for war. It looks like this. Next one. Okay. So yeah, the modern word for war actually comes from the old word for confusion. And that's how you write it. Anyway, so I think that I need to go to questions. So this is actually just how you say the name of the town Defiance and how you spell it in the various writing systems. So each of those say Defiance in one way or another. So yeah, thanks very much. I think we have time for questions.
Do you have a question?
Great.
I was curious to know what languages you may have used that you had in mind when you created these, because just in that one clip they showed, it sounded, I thought it was Hindi at one point. So do they have roots in some languages we might be familiar with?
Actually, I think for that that song, that actually wasn't Indian language. I'm not sure if it was Hindi, but it sounded to me like a Syfy Defiance. But this. Basically, what I was actually basing this on, at this point in time, like, you know, when you've been creating language a while, you don't really use language as the base anymore. It's more like, what are you trying to achieve with this language? So since I knew Arabian and Castithan were going to be the two main languages that we hear in the show, I wanted them to be massively different. And so one of the ideas I had was to make Arabian a language that was spoken as slowly as possible, and Castithan a language spoken as quickly as possible. Sometimes it's so quick I stumble. I don't know how the actors do it. They do a great job. But so those basic goals that I had in mind kind of informed how I constructed the language. So I actually had to do, I kind of modified the phonology, the sound system of Castithan in such a way that it could be spoken very, very quickly. Whereas with Arabian, since it was spoken slowly, I had to modify the grammar in such a way that you could actually drop elements periodically from a sentence if it was going to get too long. So it packed as much information into a small space as possible. Since after all, this is for a TV show and they don't have an hour to say a sentence, right? So anyway, that's kind of like where I started with that.
I just have to say, I find this absolutely fascinating. You spent so much time and effort in this. It's just amazing. So can you talk a little bit about what is your educational background? How did you get into creating these languages?
Oh, well, I started out as an English major. That was inspiring. But then, you know, I kind of moved into linguistics in my BA, and I started creating languages at the same time that I started studying linguistics in undergraduate. And then I kind of really fell in love with both, and so I just kept on creating languages and studying linguistics, and then I went on and got an MA in linguistics, and yeah, I've been creating languages for about 12 years now.
I'm going to cheat and ask a question. I actually have my own microphone, so I don't need yours. David, could you maybe speak to the process about, because one of the things that I find really fascinating about what you do is how the words get from your mind into the mouths of the actors on camera, and just the steps that we have to go through in terms of getting it in the script and having Brian send you the material.
Okay, sure. So basically what I do first is, you know, I get a script, and the script will have a call for a bunch of lines to be translated into one of the various languages, and then usually the first thing I do is I ask, can I please translate more lines? You know, so I really have to stuff in the show. But so, you know, I get the lines, I kind of read them, and I see, I try to figure out what's appropriate, because that's really kind of my domain. I want to figure out, you know, this is what needs to be conveyed. How best should this be said? You know, what makes sense given the language. And so then at that point, you know, I do my translation, and then I record each of the lines on MP3. It's been hundreds, 1,000 lines so far this season. So I record each of the lines on MP3, I send the translations back, and also I provide the actors with material. It was actually Grant Boulder who gave me this cue, so that I kind of give the actors an idea of literally what's being said. So they don't have to, you know, understand the language fluently, but they have an idea of which part goes with which part, so they know where to add their own inflection. And so then I kind of send that off, the actors get it, they kind of rehearse, they see what they want to bring to it, and then they record. And I I've got to see it on film, and I've got to see it live, and it's just incredible.
I think that's all we have time for David, but David will be here throughout the rest of the morning and early afternoon for lunch, so please do ask him what you need to ask him. Thank you, David.
Thank you.